Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MedCloudInsider Podcast, a monthly recap of the top stories published in our online industry news magazine for IT professionals and developers in the medical and healthcare community in the U.S. It's based on the work of our flesh and blood reporters and given voice by AI. I'm Gladys Rama, Editorial Director in the Converge 360 group of 1105 Media, and I'm joined today, as always, by our Editor-in-Chief, John K. Waters. Hi, John.
Hi, Gladys. What are we talking about today?
We've got three stories that are reshaping how technology intersects with healthcare. First up, we've got an incredible development from Deepgram. They've just unveiled Nova-3 Medical, which is basically a next-level speech-to-text model that's built specifically for healthcare, and it's supposedly the most accurate real-time medical transcription system on the market right now.
That sounds like it could be a game changer for doctors. What else do we have on the agenda?
Well, the second story is about a partnership between SandboxAQ and Nvidia. They're teaming up to advance AI powered drug discovery and medical imaging using a platform built on Nvidia's DGX cloud infrastructure. It's being billed as an innovation that could, transform how we develop new treatments.
The intersection of AI and drug discovery is a fascinating topic.
I know, right? And then lastly, we're going to talk about PDS Health, which is launching this new technology division to expand access to integrated electronic health record solutions. They've been working with Epic EHR systems for over a decade, and now they're opening up their model to external healthcare organizations.
Sounds like a great lineup. Where should we start?
Let's kick things off with Deepgram's Nova-3 Medical. I think it's a perfect example of how AI is starting to make meaningful impacts in healthcare settings. And it's not just like theoretical anymore. This is technology that's ready to be implemented right now. It was announced at the HIMSS 25 Global Health Conference in Las Vegas, which is the big healthcare IT event of the year.
What exactly makes this different from regular speech to text systems that we already have?
That's that's a great question. So, the thing is Nova-3 Medical is specifically designed for clinical environments, right? And in those settings, accuracy isn't just convenient, it's critical to patient care and regulatory compliance. Like if you're documenting a patient's symptoms or medication dosages, you absolutely cannot afford to have errors in that transcription.
That makes total sense. I imagine medical terminology must be challenging for standard speech recognition systems.
Exactly. You know how regular speech recognition sometimes struggles with everyday words? Well, imagine trying to accurately transcribe terms like pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcan-oconiosis or pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. These are real medical terms that general purpose AI models just aren't trained to handle well.
I'd struggle to even pronounce those terms correctly.
And Deepgram didn't just adapt an existing model. They built this from the ground up specifically for healthcare. It's designed to understand medical terminology, doctor patient conversations, and even deal with the challenging acoustic environments you find in hospitals and clinics.
So, are doctors actually using this technology already?
Well, it was just announced, but Deepgram's targeting audience. We're talking hospitals, telehealth providers, and healthcare technology developers. The idea is that this becomes part of the core infrastructure for any voice enabled healthcare application.
What kinds of applications are we talking about specifically?
Think about, real time transcription during patient consultations, where doctors can actually focus on the patient instead of typing notes. Or voice controlled EHR systems that let physicians update records hands free. There's also the whole telehealth angle, where accurate transcription can help remote providers capture important details during video consultations.
That sounds incredibly useful. I've seen my doctor struggle to maintain eye contact while typing everything I say into the computer.
Yeah, and that's exactly the problem they're trying to solve. The cognitive load on healthcare providers is just it's immense. They're trying to listen to patients, think about diagnosis, document everything correctly, and maintain that human connection. Having a system that can accurately capture the medical conversation allows them to focus more on the patient and less on documentation.
How does this fit into the broader healthcare AI landscape? Is this part of a bigger trend?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of this this massive shift toward using AI to reduce administrative burden in healthcare. Doctors spend something like 40% of their time on paperwork and documentation. That's that's time they could be spending with patients. So anything that streamlines that process without sacrificing accuracy is incredibly valuable.
Anything that streamlines that process without sacrificing accuracy is incredibly valuable.
Right, and Deepgram is positioning this as more than just a transcription tool. They're calling it a full stack voice AI platform that includes text to speech and speech to speech components too. So it's really about creating this complete voice ecosystem for healthcare settings.
So let's get into the details of how Nova-3 Medical actually performs. Do we have any um, specific benchmarks or data on how good it really is? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do, and the numbers are impressive. So, in their benchmark tests, Nova-3 Medical achieved a median word error rate, or WER as they call it, of just 45%.
Is that good? What does that actually mean in practice?
It's it's not just good, it's incredible. That 3.45% error rate represents a 63.6% reduction compared to the next best solution on the market. So, like for every 3 words that competing systems get wrong, Nova 3 Medical only misses about one. That's that's a huge leap forward, especially when you're dealing with, critical medical information.
That sounds like a massive improvement. But isn't medical terminology what really matters here?
It is. And that's where the most interesting metric comes in. They also measured something called the keyword error rate, or KER, which specifically looks at how well the system recognizes those critical medical terms we talked about. And Nova 3 Medical recorded a KER of just 6.79%.
And how does that compare to other systems?
It's it's more than 40% better than competing solutions. So we're talking about a system that's getting nearly all the technical medical terminology right, which is, the stuff that absolutely has to be accurate in medical documentation. Think about medication names, dosages, diagnoses. These are the terms where mistakes could literally be life threatening.
What about other technical advantages? For example, does it work well in noisy environments like hospitals?
That's one of the key things they focused on. Hospitals are notoriously they're challenging audio environments, right? You've got equipment beeping, staff talking, PA announcements, and doctors sometimes dictating from across the room. Nova 3 Medical is specifically built to handle this kind of distant or noisy audio input without losing accuracy.
What about security and compliance? I imagine that's pretty important for medical data.
Absolutely critical. They've built this to be fully HIPAA compliant, which is, the standard for protecting sensitive patient information. And they offer both on premises deployment options and VPC, virtual private cloud deployments. So healthcare organizations can choose how they want to implement it based on their specific security and compliance requirements.
Are there any customization options for different medical specialties?
Yes, one of the coolest features is something they call key term prompting. It lets organizations customize up to 100 medical terms that are specific to their specialty. So, like, a cardiology practice could add specialized cardiac terminology, while an oncology department could focus on cancer related terms. The system gets better at recognizing exactly the terminology that particular providers use most often.
That makes a lot of sense. Every specialty has its own language, right?
Exactly, and this is where you see the real advantage over generic speech to text systems. This thing isn't just trained on general medical vocabulary, it can be tuned to specific clinical contexts, which means even higher accuracy for those specialty specific terms.
What about integration with existing hospital systems? That's often a challenge with new tech.
They've really thought about this. Nova 3 Medical supports seamless integration with electronic health record systems, which is huge because EHRs are they're the backbone of modern healthcare IT. So the transcriptions can flow directly into the patient record without manual copying and pasting, which both saves time and reduces the chance for errors.
So, what does all this mean for practical everyday use in healthcare?
In practical terms, it means doctors can spend less time fixing transcription errors and more time with patients. It means more accurate documentation, which leads to better care and fewer billing issues. And it opens up possibilities for voice first clinical workflows that just weren't reliable enough before. The combination of speed, accuracy, and medical specific optimization really makes this a potential game changer for clinical documentation.
So, let's talk about how this actually works in real healthcare settings. How does Nova-3 Medical fit into existing systems?
Well, that's really where this gets interesting. One of the biggest challenges in healthcare tech is like getting new tools to play nicely with existing systems. And Deepgram has put a lot of effort into making sure Nova 3 Medical integrates seamlessly with electronic health record systems, EHRs, so doctors and nurses can just speak and the transcriptions flow directly into patient records without any manual copying or extra steps.
That must save a ton of time for medical professionals, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. The average physician spends like almost 2 hours on documentation for every hour they spend with patients. It's it's ridiculous. With this kind of technology, they can just talk naturally while examining a patient, and the notes get created in real time. This means more time actually treating patients and less time hunched over a keyboard typing up notes after hours.
What about the pricing? Is this something smaller practices can afford?
That's that's actually another really interesting aspect. Deepgram is offering Nova 3 Medical starting at 0.0077 per minute of streaming audio. To put that in perspective, they're claiming it's more than twice as affordable as leading cloud-based competitors. So we're talking about significantly better performance at less than half the price.
So, what does that actually mean for a typical hospital or clinic?
Well, let's think about it. A busy hospital might have hundreds of providers generating thousands of hours of dictation each month. At traditional rates, that could cost tens of thousands of dollars. But with Nova 3 Medical's pricing, they could potentially cut those costs dramatically while actually improving accuracy. For smaller practices, it might make advanced voice AI financially viable for the first time.
Are there specific departments or specialties where this would be particularly useful?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, emergency departments would be a huge beneficiary because everything happens so fast there, and documentation often lags behind. With real time transcription, notes could be completed almost immediately after patient encounters.
What about telehealth? That's become such a big part of healthcare delivery.
Telehealth is probably one of the most exciting use cases, actually. When you think about it, telehealth is all about that audio and video connection, right? Having accurate real time transcription during virtual visits could help with note taking, ensuring important details aren't missed. It could even provide real time captions for patients who are hard of hearing. And and since the system works well with distant audio, it can handle the sometimes problematic audio quality of video calls.
Does it work with different accents and speech patterns? That's often a challenge with speech recognition.
That's a great question. From what they're saying, the model has been trained on diverse speech patterns and accents, which is crucial in healthcare where you have such a diverse workforce. This is a big improvement over older systems that might struggle with non native English speakers or regional accents.
So, beyond just transcription, what other applications might this have?
So many possibilities. One that I find really exciting is ambient clinical intelligence. Basically, having an AI assistant listening during patient encounters and automatically generating structured notes, highlighting key clinical findings, and even suggesting potential diagnoses or next steps based on the conversation. The underlying speech to text has to be incredibly accurate for that to work, and Nova 3 Medical might finally be good enough.
That sounds almost futuristic.
It does, but it's happening now. And another interesting application is quality assurance. With patient permission, hospitals could analyze transcribed conversations to ensure proper protocols are being followed, identify training opportunities, and even spot patterns in patient complaints or symptoms that might otherwise go unnoticed. It's not just about documentation anymore, it's about extracting actionable insights from these clinical conversations.
Um, so, let's move on to our second big story of the day. This collaboration between SandboxAQ and Nvidia sounds really fascinating.
So, SandboxAQ is this innovative company that spun out of Alphabet, Google's parent company, and they're doing some incredible work at the intersection of AI and quantum computing. And Nvidia, well, they're basically the powerhouse behind a lot of the computing infrastructure that makes modern AI possible.
What exactly are they working on together?
So they're teaming up to accelerate breakthroughs in like drug development, therapeutic design, and medical imaging. The heart of it is this new AI platform that SandboxAQ is building on NVIDIA's DGX cloud infrastructure. It's it's really about combining SandboxAQ's scientific expertise with NVIDIA's raw computing power.
Can you break down what Sandbox AQ actually does?
Yeah, so the AQ part actually stands for AI and quantum, which really captures their focus. They've positioned themselves as leaders in what they call scientific AI. They've got some serious backing too. Investors like T. Rowe Price, BNP Paribas, and even Mark Benioff from Salesforce.
And what makes this partnership significant?
Well, what's really exciting is how they're expanding their large quantitative model platform, or LQM for short. Think of it like, how we have large language models like GPT that are really good at processing text? LQMs are specialized for modeling biological and chemical processes with incredible accuracy and speed.
So it's like ChatGPT, but for molecules?
That's that's actually not a bad way to think about it. But while language models predict the next word in a sentence, these LQMs are predicting how molecules will interact, how drugs might bind to targets in the body, or how biological processes unfold. And they're doing this based on actual scientific equations and principles, not just pattern matching.
What kinds of problems can they solve with this?
The impressive thing is they're tackling problems where traditional AI approaches fall short. Like in healthcare and drug discovery, you need models that are scientifically reliable, compliant with regulations, and incredibly accurate across many dimensions. Their CEO, Jack Hydery, talks about how this collaboration is going to radically compress R&D timelines for organizations working on life-saving treatments.
How does NVIDIA fit into this?
NVIDIA's contribution is absolutely crucial here. Their DGX cloud infrastructure, which runs on Google Cloud in this case, provides the massive computing power needed to train and run these complex models. Alexis Bjorlin, who's a VP at NVIDIA, mentioned that the scale and performance of their platform is what's enabling these transformative applications across healthcare.
So this isn't just theoretical research. There are actual practical applications?
Oh no, not at all theoretical. These are practical applications with real world impact. SandboxAQ is already working with pharma companies to enhance their preclinical pipelines. And, this kind of technology could potentially shave years off the drug development process, which typically takes, 10 to 15 years from start to finish. That means treatments reaching patients faster, which is, honestly, that's what this is all about at the end of the day.
It sounds like computational power has been a limiting factor until now.
Exactly. These simulations are incredibly computationally intensive. When you're modeling complex biological systems, like how a potential drug interacts with a specific protein in the body, you're dealing with quantum level interactions that are just mind bogglingly complex. Having NVIDIA's horsepower behind this makes previously impossible calculations possible.
So I'm curious about this large quantitative model platform. It sounds really advanced. What makes it different from the AI models we typically hear about?
Oh, it's completely different in many ways. So, like traditional AI models, the ones we hear about all the time, they're basically pattern recognition systems, right? They look at tons and tons of data and they find patterns. But LQMs are something else entirely. They're based on fundamental scientific equations and principles rather than just, statistical correlations.
Could you give an example of how that works in practice?
So, traditional AI might predict something based on, well, in the past, when we saw XY happened 80% of the time, but a large quantitative model would actually simulate the underlying physics or chemistry of what's happening. It's like, instead of just guessing that a ball will fall when you drop it because that's what usually happens, the LQM would calculate the actual trajectory using gravity equations.
That sounds incredibly precise.
It is, and that's exactly why it's so valuable for scientific applications. When you're dealing with something as complex as, say, how a new drug molecule might interact with a protein in the human body, you need that level of precision. You can't just rely on, well, similar molecules did this in the past, so maybe this one will too. The stakes are way too high for that kind of approximation.
What kinds of scientific applications benefit most from this approach?
So many. Drug discovery is probably the biggest one right now. These models can simulate how millions of potential drug compounds might interact with disease targets. But it goes beyond that. They're using it for material science, quantum chemistry simulations, enzyme function analysis, even things like predicting how certain molecules might catalyze specific reactions.
I'm wondering about the computational requirements. These must be incredibly intensive calculations.
That's exactly why this partnership with Nvidia is so important. SandboxAQ and Nvidia actually achieved an 80 times speed up in quantum chemistry simulations using Nvidia's CUDA accelerated techniques. And get this, in 2025, they successfully modeled a system with 82 electrons in 82 orbitals, which is just, it's mind blowing to anyone who works in this field. That was previously thought to be computationally impossible.
What exactly does that mean for someone not familiar with quantum chemistry?
Right, sorry. Think of it like trying to predict how 82 different particles will interact with each other simultaneously, where each one affects all the others. It's exponentially complex. And being able to model that accurately means we can now tackle problems in molecular biology and pharmacokinetics. You know, how drugs move through the body with unprecedented precision.
Are there regulatory considerations with this kind of technology in healthcare?
That's actually one of the big advantages of the LQM approach, because these models are based on established scientific principles rather than just black box predictions. They can be more transparent in how they reach conclusions. And that's huge for regulatory compliance, especially in healthcare, where you need to be able to explain why you're making certain decisions or predictions.
So it seems like this approach combines the best of both worlds, the power of AI with the precision of scientific modeling.
That's that's exactly it. It's not just AI for AI's sake. It's using computational power to solve real scientific problems with a level of accuracy that wasn't possible before. And in healthcare, that accuracy can literally be the difference between a treatment that works and one that fails in clinical trials after millions of dollars have been spent developing it.
Okay, so how exactly is SandboxAQ's technology changing the drug discovery process? Because that seems to be where so much of the potential is.
So, traditional drug discovery has always followed this kind of design make test workflow that's just incredibly time consuming. I mean, we're talking about months and months of lab work to test just a handful of compounds. But Sandbox AQ is completely transforming that with their high performance equation based modeling.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, instead of physically creating and testing each drug candidate in a lab, they're using these advanced simulations to model how drug candidates interact with biological systems. And we're talking about really complex stuff here, like enzyme sites that are traditionally super hard to map, and complex molecular structures that are, difficult to study with conventional methods.
And that speeds up the process?
We're seeing preclinical development timelines being reduced from months to just weeks. And that's a game changer for pharmaceutical companies. But the real breakthrough, and this is what I'm personally most excited about, is their agentic AI chemist.
What's that?
It's basically an autonomous AI system that can screen millions, and I mean literally millions, of molecular combinations without human intervention. The system is constantly working, testing different configurations, and and learning from each iteration. It's operating at a scale that would be completely impossible in a traditional lab setting, no matter how many researchers you had.
How does it know what works and what doesn't?
That's the clever part. These AI models are trained on these really carefully curated biomedical data sets that combine chemical data, genomic information, and clinical data. So the system has this really comprehensive understanding of what's likely to be effective. And this helps it to make much better efficacy predictions and and drastically reduces those costly false positives that have always plagued drug discovery.
Are pharmaceutical companies actually using this now, or is it still theoretical?
No, no, they're definitely using it right now. Several pharma companies have already deployed the platform to enhance their preclinical pipeline performance. And and the early indicators are really promising. They're seeing big improvements in hit to lead conversion rates. That's basically how many initial promising compounds actually progress to the next stage of development. And they're also seeing better target validation accuracy.
That sounds like it could have huge implications for getting new treatments to patients.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you can test millions of compounds in the time it used to take to test dozens, and with greater accuracy, well, you're going to discover effective treatments much faster. And time is everything in healthcare, right? Especially for patients waiting for new therapies.
What about the complexity of biological systems? Can AI really account for all the variables?
That's a great question. And this is where SandboxAQ's approach really shines. Their models aren't just trying to find statistical correlations, they're actually simulating the underlying physics and chemistry of these interactions. So they can account for things like how a drug might change shape when it binds to a protein, or how different dosages might affect efficacy and toxicity.
Is there a risk of the AI missing something critical that a human scientist might catch?
There's always that concern with any AI system, but that's why they've designed this as an augmentative tool rather than a replacement for human expertise. The AI does the heavy lifting of screening millions of combinations, and then human scientists can focus their attention on the most promising candidates. It's really about magnifying human capabilities rather than replacing them.
So, speaking of these amazing advancements, how is Sandbox AQ applying their platform to medical imaging? That seems like a whole different challenge than drug discovery.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So they're doing some really groundbreaking stuff in medical imaging and diagnostics too. Like, you know how medical imaging has always been about capturing the data and then having radiologists interpret it? Well, Sandbox AQ is taking this to a whole new level with their high fidelity simulations of biological tissues and molecular interactions.
What does that mean for actual patient scans?
It means dramatically improved imaging resolution for starters. Their platform can enhance the quality of scans by using these AI models to fill in gaps or clarify areas that might be fuzzy in traditional imaging. But what's really exciting is their ability to detect anomalies with much greater accuracy.
How much more accurate are we talking?
The numbers are pretty impressive. Their models can spot subtle patterns that might indicate early stage disease that human eyes, even really experienced radiologists, might miss. And it's all happening in real time, which is just incredible when you think about it.
So, does this mean radiologists are being replaced by AI?
No, not at all. It's more like giving radiologists superpowered vision, you know? The AI handles the initial screening and highlights areas of concern, but the final diagnosis still relies on human expertise. It's about making radiologists more effective and efficient rather than replacing them.
What about practical applications? Is this technology being used in hospitals right now?
It's starting to be, yes. Several medical centers are already implementing these tools to supplement their imaging departments. And this is where the Nvidia partnership becomes so critical. The DGX cloud infrastructure provides the massive computing power needed to run these complex simulations and process imaging data at scale.
What kind of impact could this have on patients?
Oh man, it could be life-changing for so many people. Earlier detection of diseases like cancer means treatment can start sooner, which often leads to better outcomes. Plus, the improved accuracy means fewer false positives and negatives, which reduces unnecessary procedures and ensures patients who need treatment actually get it.
Are there specific types of imaging where this technology shows the most promise?
Yeah, absolutely. It's proving particularly valuable in areas like neuroimaging where you're dealing with incredibly complex structures. Their models can identify subtle changes in brain tissue that might indicate early stage neurological conditions. And in oncology, they're able to more precisely map tumor boundaries, which is crucial for treatment planning.
That's fascinating. What about more routine imaging?
Even for common procedures like X-rays and ultrasounds, the technology can help standardize interpretation and catch things that might otherwise be missed. They've developed these models that can look at patterns across thousands of similar images and identify what's normal versus what might be cause for concern.
How does this connect to their quantum computing background?
That's where things get really interesting. SandboxAQ's roots in quantum computing give them a unique approach to modeling physical systems. They're not just using traditional machine learning, they're incorporating principles from quantum mechanics to better simulate how biological systems actually behave at a molecular level. This means their models can capture subtleties that conventional AI might miss.
It sounds like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Oh, we absolutely are. The combination of AI and quantum inspired simulation is opening doors we couldn't even imagine a few years ago. And with Nvidia's computing infrastructure backing them up, the potential for advancement is just it's mind-blowing, honestly.
Um, so we've covered some pretty incredible AI advancements in healthcare so far. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about our third story of the day, which is all about PDS Health launching a new technology division, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually like super interesting because PDS Health is already a major player in the healthcare support space. And now they're really expanding their tech footprint in a big way. This new division they've launched, PDS Health Technologies, is basically taking everything they've learned about connecting dental and medical services and making it available to a much wider network of providers.
What's their background in healthcare technology? I don't think I'm as familiar with them.
So, PDS Health has actually been investing in healthcare tech for more than a decade now. What's really impressive is that they were the first major dental organization to adopt Epic's EHR system across all their supported practices. You know, Epic is like, it's basically the gold standard for electronic health records in the medical world.
So they've been connecting dental and medical records through Epic?
Exactly. And they've scaled this up to support over 1,000 locations nationwide, which is it's pretty massive when you think about it. The really cool thing they've done is creating this unified system where a patient's dental and medical records are all linked together in a single history. It's something that, seems obvious but has been surprisingly difficult to achieve in healthcare.
What's the actual benefit of having dental and medical records linked? I'm curious about the real world impact.
Think about conditions like diabetes that can seriously affect oral health. Or how about medications that might cause dry mouth or other dental issues? When providers can see the complete picture, they can deliver much better care. Plus, it eliminates all that redundant paperwork patients hate filling out every time they see a new provider.
So, what exactly is this new division going to be doing that's different?
The big change is that they're now opening up their model to external healthcare organizations through something called Epic Community Connect. So, hospitals, dental providers, and medical practices that maybe couldn't afford to implement Epic on their own can now access this shared EHR infrastructure. And PDS Health is providing all the training, system management, and implementation assistance to make it work smoothly.
Is this unusual in the healthcare space to share technology like this?
It's definitely not the norm, which is what makes this move so interesting. Most organizations tend to keep their tech infrastructure proprietary, But PDS Health is taking this collaborative approach that could really accelerate the adoption of integrated care models across the country. They're essentially saying, hey, we figured this out and we want to help you implement it too.
Who's leading this new initiative?
They've brought in a healthcare IT veteran named Preston Rollerson. He's got like 20 years of experience and has worked at some major players like Optum, the advisory board company, and even Epic Systems itself. So he really knows his stuff when it comes to healthcare technology implementation.
So, what exactly does this Epic Community Connect initiative look like in practice? I mean, how does it actually work for these external organizations?
At its core, it's basically a way for smaller healthcare organizations to piggyback on PDS Health's existing Epic infrastructure, right? Instead of going through the whole, massive expense and headache of implementing Epic from scratch, which trust me can cost millions of dollars and take years, these providers can essentially join PDS Health's existing network.
Does that mean they're just getting access to the software, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's way more than just software access. PDS Health is offering this comprehensive package. They're providing the actual Epic system, but also all the implementation support, the training for staff, ongoing system management, everything you need to make it work. And that's actually the hard part of EHR adoption, right? It's not just having the system, it's making sure people know how to use it and that it's configured correctly for your specific practice.
What types of healthcare organizations would benefit most from this?
Well, I think the biggest winners are probably smaller dental practices that want to connect with the broader healthcare ecosystem, but just don't have the resources to implement Epic on their own. But really, any healthcare organization that wants to improve care coordination could benefit. So, like community hospitals, specialist practices, even larger medical groups that want to better integrate with dental care.
And what does this integration actually look like for patients? How would they experience the difference?
Imagine you go to your dentist and they can actually see that you started a new medication prescribed by your primary care doctor last week. They immediately know if that might affect your dental treatment or if it explains certain symptoms you're having. Or the opposite way. Your medical doctor can see that you've had persistent gum disease, which might be relevant to other health conditions they're monitoring.
That seems like it would eliminate a lot of those annoying questions we always have to answer at appointments.
Exactly. You don't have to be the one remembering and reciting your entire medical history at every new provider. The system does that for you. And what's really powerful is that this integrated approach can catch things that might otherwise fall through the cracks. Like, dental issues can sometimes be early warning signs of systemic health problems, and vice versa. When all your providers are looking at the same record, those connections are much easier to make.
Are there any privacy concerns with all this data sharing?
That's a really good question. Epic actually has extremely robust security protocols built in, and PDS Health is obviously fully HIPAA compliant. The system has sophisticated permission controls, so providers only see the information they need to see. And patients always maintain control over who can access their records. It's actually more secure than the old way of faxing records back and forth between offices or, having patients carry their own paperwork around.
So it sounds like this could really transform how different types of healthcare providers work together.
That's exactly the point. It breaks down those silos that have traditionally existed between dental and medical care. And the more providers that join this network, the more powerful the whole ecosystem becomes. It's like it's kind of like a social network effect, but for healthcare delivery. Each new participant makes the entire system more valuable for everyone.
So beyond this EHR integration, what other services is PDS Health Technologies offering through this new division?
Oh, they're actually going way beyond just the EHR stuff. Like one of the biggest things they're rolling out is comprehensive revenue cycle management services. And that's huge because, billing and collections are such a massive headache for healthcare practices. They're basically saying, "Hey, we'll help you optimize your financial performance from end to end."
What does that revenue cycle management actually involve?
So it's basically everything from when a patient schedules an appointment to when the final payment clears. It includes things like, insurance verification, coding, claim submission, denial management, patient billing, all that super complicated financial stuff that can make or break a practice. And for smaller organizations that don't have dedicated billing departments, having experts handle this can dramatically improve their cash flow. And they're also offering all these consulting services too. So, like practice optimization, helping providers streamline their workflows, staffing support, which is a huge issue right now with healthcare staffing shortages everywhere, and even leadership development programs. It's really it's a full package designed to take all those administrative burdens off the plates of clinicians so they can focus on, actually treating patients.
What's the broader significance of all these services being bundled together?
Well, what they're really doing is creating this one-stop shop for healthcare organizations that want to modernize. Instead of having to cobble together solutions from different vendors for your EHR, your billing system, your operational consulting, PDS Health is saying, we can provide all of that in an integrated way. And that integration is key because when all these systems talk to each other, you eliminate so many of the inefficiencies that plague healthcare today.
So I'm noticing some interesting patterns across all three of the developments we've discussed today. Like there seem to be some common threads running through them, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was thinking the exact same thing. The biggest pattern I'm seeing across Deepgram, SandboxAQ, and PDS Health is this massive push toward integration, right? Like they're all trying to break down these technology silos that have been holding healthcare back for years.
What do you mean by silos exactly?
Well, traditionally in healthcare, you've got all these separate systems that don't talk to each other. Your medical records in one place, billing in another, lab results somewhere else. And it's a nightmare. But what we're seeing now is this concerted effort to connect everything. Deepgram is integrating voice data with EHRs. SandboxAQ is combining different types of scientific data for drug discovery. And PDS Health is literally building bridges between dental and medical records. It's all about creating this like seamless flow of information.
And AI seems to be the common technology powering a lot of this integration, right?
Exactly. AI is the secret sauce in all three stories. It's what makes this level of integration actually useful rather than just, overwhelming. Because the challenge isn't just connecting systems, it's making sense of all that data once it's connected. And that's where AI comes in. Deepgram's using AI to accurately transcribe medical conversations, Sandbox AQ's using it to simulate complex biological processes, and PDS Health is leveraging it to extract meaningful insights from patient records across different care settings.
I also noticed they're all focused on practical, real world applications rather than just theoretical benefits.
That's such a good point. There's this very pragmatic approach to all three innovations. They're solving specific problems that healthcare providers face every day. Like Deepgram is addressing the time doctors waste on documentation, Sandbox AQ is tackling the inefficiency of traditional drug discovery, and PDS Health is solving the operational challenges that smaller practices face. It's not technology for technology's sake, it's technology with a clear purpose.
Do you think there's also a common thread about improving patient outcomes?
That's really the end goal of all this, right? When doctors spend less time on paperwork because of Deepgram, they can focus more on patient care. When new drugs get developed faster with Sandbox AQ's platform, more patients can access life saving treatments sooner. And when PDS Health connects dental and medical records, providers get a more complete picture of patient health, which leads to better care decisions.
What about data security and privacy? That seems to be a consideration across all three.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, especially in healthcare where you're dealing with such sensitive information. All three companies are really emphasizing their compliance credentials. Deepgram with its HIPAA compliance, Sandbox AQ with its regulatory ready models, and PDS Health with its secure infrastructure. They recognize that no matter how amazing the technology is, if it doesn't protect patient privacy, it's dead in the water in healthcare.
Is there anything else these innovations have in common that stands out to you?
I think they're all recognizing that healthcare is this ecosystem where different specialties and different types of care need to work together. Like there's this acknowledgement that healthcare isn't just a bunch of separate services. It's this interconnected web. And technology needs to support those connections rather than reinforce the divisions. That's why we're seeing tools that bridge different specialties, different data types, different care settings. It's all moving toward this more holistic view of healthcare delivery.
So, looking down the road a bit, what do you think all of these technologies will actually mean for healthcare providers in their day to day work? Like, how might a doctor's job look different in, say, 5 years because of these innovations?
Oh man, that's such a fascinating question. I think the most immediate change we're going to see is this dramatic reduction in administrative burden. Like right now, doctors spend what, something like 40% of their time just doing documentation? It's it's ridiculous. With tools like Deepgram's Nova-3 Medical becoming more widespread, I think we'll see that number shrink dramatically.
Would that mean doctors can see more patients per day?
Yeah, potentially, but I think what's more likely and honestly more beneficial is that they'll spend more quality time with each patient. Imagine walking into an exam room and your doctor is actually making eye contact with you instead of typing frantically into a computer. And they're actually listening to what you're saying rather than trying to mentally translate it into medical codes. That's going to transform the patient experience.
What about for researchers and pharmaceutical companies? How might their work change?
For them, I think the SandboxAQ and Nvidia collaboration points to this completely different approach to discovery. The traditional trial and error method of developing new treatments it's going to seem incredibly primitive compared to these AI driven simulation methods. We're talking about compressing years of research into weeks or even days, and not just speeding things up, but actually improving the quality of the results.
Do you think there are challenges that might slow down adoption of these technologies?
Healthcare is notoriously slow to adopt new technologies, and for some good reasons, right? Patient safety has to come first. I think the biggest hurdle is going to be integration with existing systems. Like, most hospitals and clinics are running on this patchwork of legacy software that's been cobbled together over decades. And trying to introduce these new AI powered tools into that environment is going to be messy.
What about cost? Healthcare organizations aren't exactly known for having unlimited tech budgets.
That's such a valid point. The initial investment for some of these technologies can be pretty steep. But I think what we're seeing, especially with Deepgram's pricing strategy and PDS Health's shared infrastructure model, is a recognition that cost is a barrier. These companies are finding ways to make the economics work, like offering subscription models or shared services approaches.
Are there any other adoption challenges you foresee?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be this learning curve and resistance to change among some providers. Like doctors who've been practicing for 30 years have established workflows, and asking them to suddenly trust an AI with transcription or diagnostic assistance, that's a big psychological shift. And then there's the technical expertise required. Not every healthcare organization has a robust IT team that can implement and maintain these sophisticated systems.
What should healthcare leaders be watching for in the next few years?
I think they need to be looking at early adoption case studies really carefully. Like, which organizations are successfully implementing these technologies and what's their secret sauce? Is it leadership buy in? Is it a phased approach? Is it extensive training? Understanding those success factors is going to be critical.
And what about the regulatory landscape?
Oh gosh, that's going to be fascinating to watch. The FDA and other regulators are kind of playing catch up with AI in healthcare. We're seeing them develop new frameworks for evaluating AI based medical tools, but this is all evolving really quickly. Healthcare leaders need to stay on top of these regulatory developments because they'll determine what's actually permitted in clinical settings.
Do you think smaller practices will be left behind in all of this technological advancement?
That's a real concern. And it's exactly why innovations like PDS Health's new tech division are so important. They're essentially democratizing access to enterprise grade technology by letting smaller organizations tap into shared infrastructure. I think we'll see more of these technology as a service models emerging specifically to address that gap. Because if only large health systems can afford these tools, it's going to worsen healthcare disparities, and nobody wants that.
So, I think we need to wrap things up. What are your final thoughts on everything we've covered today?
Well, I think what we're seeing is this incredible convergence of AI, data analytics, and healthcare expertise that's just completely transforming how medicine is practiced. And and the three stories we discussed today really highlight different aspects of that transformation, right? You've got Deepgram focusing on clinical documentation with their Nova-3 medical speech to text model. Then SandboxAQ and Nvidia are tackling the research and development side with their quantum inspired AI models. And finally, PDS Health is addressing the infrastructure piece by expanding access to integrated health records.
And that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of MedCloud Insider. We hope you found this exploration of cutting-edge healthcare technology informative and thought-provoking.
Thanks for listening to MedCloud Insider, where we explore the technologies shaping the future of healthcare. See you next time.